Hey crafty people, I'm Sarah, also known as Craft Nerd, because I'm a nerd who loves to craft. Over the years I've dabbled in most types of crafting, although for the past decade or so I've been doing primarily card making and mixed media art. I've recently embarked on a junk journaling journey that I hope you'll join me on. Today we're creating some whimsical Christmas ID cards for using as journaling cards in our junk journals. Let's get crafting! Okay, so over the summer, a lot of junk journal YouTubers were making vintage identity cards, and they're really cool, and I'm definitely going to give them a try. And some of them were using digitals for the person's ID photo, and others were using like the Photomatics by Ideology and Tim Holtz. And I thought those are really cool. I really want to make some, but I don't necessarily want to do a video making them unless I'm going to do something different from everybody else. And so what I ended up coming up with, and I've been waiting to do since the idea popped into my head in like August, is I'm going to do some whimsical identification cards for the employees of the North Pole. So as you can see here, I have got a stack of, these are index cards that I dyed with Brushos. So I've got red and green ones because I figured those would be good for the employees of the North Pole. I have stamped a bunch of images, and these are all lawn fawn stamps, and I've colored them with Copic markers. And what I did is I have a die by My Favorite Things that cuts out the frame, the little frame. And so what I ended up doing is I just stamped the images on the center square and then did a candy cane stripe with Copic markers on the frame in red and green. And so that's what we're going to do. And I know most like actual identification cards don't necessarily have the picture framed out because it's pretty much just like a passport photo stuck on to serve as your identification. But I figured this is the North Pole, we're whimsical, we're going to go with candy cane frames for everybody. And I actually have stamped and colored 8 reindeer plus Rudolph, but I only have 10 cards, so I can't do all of the reindeer just yet that are inked. And yes, my fingers are blue. There's another video that I filmed earlier today that will be posted soon where I do inking, so that's why my fingers are blue. I'm not actually turning into a Smurf. So in addition to this, I have grabbed some stamps. Now, from School Desk, these are Tim Holtz Stampers Anonymous. Most of the stamps are going to be. It's School Desk CMS 057. I've pulled out this stamp because I want to add some lines over here for where the information will go, but I didn't want lines all the way across. So that's why I did that. And then I grabbed several stamps. These are all from Field Notes, which is CMS 396. And then I grabbed a couple of stamps from Correspondence, which is CMS 225. Can you actually, there we go, 225. And then I need a scripty bit stamp, and so I have grabbed this guy, and that one's from Entomology. That's CMS 328. So just grab whatever stamps you've got that will work for creating your identification card. And I did grab a stamp out of my Darkroom door, Merry Mail, which is DDRS 208, and it's this one, and I'm not sure if it's going to fit and work, but we'll see. And we're going to kind of assembly line our creation of these guys, and that was inspired in large part by Ceri the Crafter. He has got a great one where he just kind of assembly lines creating these guys. And so I'm taking some inspiration from there. So what we are going to do is we're going to start with putting our lines back on. And I am just going to kind of figure out what I want to stamp. And I don't want it going all the way to the bottom. So what I'm going to do, because that's where the signature is going to go, grab a Post-it and just block off where I want for the signature at the bottom so it won't stamp there. And I don't want all of this up here, and I don't really want these pieces down there. So what I'm gonna do is make sure I'm stamping, and actually let's get out the Misty. This will make it much faster to assembly line it if I use the Misty to place my pieces. And I'm going to use the numbers on the side to line up where my index card is going so that I can line them up in the same spot each time. And I'm just going to put this down like so. I think that's going to work. And before I stamp, I'm actually going to take another index card and kind of cover up that spot on there. Let's make sure that's placed a little lower, because I don't want the little like tear dots from that on here. So I'm going to grab some ink, and I think I'm going to use some archival ink in Black Soot and just ink up my stamp. Now, if you're doing like I did with the little Post-it note on there, what you need to do is before you stamp, take the Post-it note off, and that will serve to cover up the bit of the stamp you don't want, and you'll get just the part you do. I think I'm gonna move this guy over a little more. Let's see, hold on. I should have inked off part of the top too, I think. You know, actually, I think that'll work, because then I could stamp this right there. Oh, yeah, that'll work. Okay. Now, I did save the spot at the bottom for the signature, but now I've got to fit identification in there. I think that'll work. Okay. What I want to do for the next one, we're gonna try and assembly line this as best we can. I am gonna do basically the same steps over again. I'm gonna block off the bottom. I am, however, gonna shift this guy over a little more because I don't love the line at the end, and put it here. Reuse my little Post-it to cover up this part. Ink. Pull my Post-it off. Stamp. There we go. And I'm just going to go through and do that on all of them. Now, next I'm going to stamp identification on the top of all of them. And again, using the MISTI just makes this go a little bit faster, because I can line them all up and just stamp away. And right now what I'm looking for is I'm missing a magnet. So that I can do that. I'm just going to put that there, do that, and again I'm going to use my little Post-it note trick to cover up the word check so that I don't have to worry about inking it. And I want to bring color in, so on the green ones I think I'm going to grab Lumberjack Plaid and stamp identification in red. So now I can just pull that one out, pop this one in, and I'm using, everything's on the 7. So this should line up correctly. Again, Post-it to cover the part of the stamp I don't want inked. Pull that off. Identification. They're not all going to be perfect, but they're going to be good enough. Now I'm going to clean off my stamp and switch to green for my red card. So I'm going to have to line my stamp up again, but that's okay. It won't take very long to do that. And for this one, I'll grab, let's go with pine needles because that's a nice dark green, if I can find where I put it. Now I am going to stamp my darkroom door stamp along. Actually, no. What we're going to do now is, I think, I keep going back and forth here. Put that there. Darkroom door stamp. All right, I think we're gonna be good, and we're just gonna go ahead and do the darkroom door. And again, for the reds, I'm gonna do it in green, and for the greens, I'm gonna do it in red. Okay, so next up is I'm gonna take my scripty stamp. I'm gonna mask off here. 2 lines up here. And down here. This way I do not have to worry about it. And I'm just gonna stamp that there. And for this one, I'm gonna use Archival ink in Vintage Photo. So the whole purpose of the scripty stamp is just to give the impression that their relevant info is on here. Now the reason I love this bit blank is because I picked up some interlocking peg stamps so that we can actually stamp their names on. So we'll get to that after we do all of this bit, which I'm gonna do now. I just wanted to adjust the positioning on that one. All right, so next up is we're gonna add the pictures before we stamp the names. This way we don't end up accidentally mixing up and have, you know, Mrs. Claus picture with Santa's name on it. I'm gonna start with this one. We're gonna start with Santa. And I'm gonna grab my art glitter glue and I am gonna glue down my frame. Put that right about there. And then glue down Santa. And keep going along. So there we go. All of our photos are now on our ID cards. Okay, so I picked these up at Michael's. They're Recollections stamp set, and pretty much it's individual letters, but you can click them together and create words. And so this one I've got Santa spelled out, and so I'm just going to grab some archival ink and do my best to stamp this well, because don't really have an opportunity to do this more than once. So it's identification, Santa. So I've got Santa done. Let's see, I've got Bumble spelled out already for our abominable snowman identification card. Then I've got, I figured we'd name her Holly. And so the set comes with 2 of each letter, and it's actually 2 stamp sets. It's the uppercases and then a separate set for the lower cases. I know Amazon has a set because I was looking at ordering them, and then I found them at Michael's on Black Friday, and they were half off, and even not half off, they were less expensive than the set I was looking at Michael or at Amazon, so I went ahead and picked them up. So let's name this fellow Jolly. And so I just need to find the J. I've got the little pegs all over the place on my desk right now. It's gonna be a lot of fun putting them back together into something that's semi-organized after this. There we go. So this one, there may have only been 1 J in the set. So it may be the more popular letters there's 2 of, and the less popular you only get 1. Let's see, there's Holly. So all we have to do is change the first letter to J, and this little elf can be Jolly. And I started Mrs. Claus somewhere over here. All right, so I've got Mrs. Claus. Ooh, that's just gonna fit. Her name's a longin'. And I did try and find Mrs. Claus's first name, like I did a Google search, and she doesn't seem to have one. I believe in the stop action animated film from the 70s, and I think it's Santa Claus is Coming to Town. Her name is Jessica, but historical go way back. She's just Mrs. Claus. Can you guess what what name we're gonna put on this one? All right, I'm just gonna go ahead and stamp the names on all the rest of them and I'll be back. So I've stamped all of the names on everybody. Now we're gonna put a number under each of the photos. And so for that, I've pulled out a couple different stamps that we're gonna use. And I'm just gonna grab a stamping block for this. And again, I'm gonna use red and green, I think, for this. So I'll do 2 with this number. Let's see. We're gonna do that. And what I can do is to alter my number a little. It's my same trick with the Post-it, and so I can take off one of the numbers. Stamp that guy. And I think we're gonna make Frosty. We're gonna use the Agent 1929, but we're gonna cover up the last 9. I stamped it green on the green when I meant to stamp it red on the green. Oh well. So he's Agent 120, 192. We'll stamp Holly will be Agent 129. For Santa, I want him to be Agent 1. So we're gonna cover up all the other numbers, ink our stamp. Agent 1. Let's make Yeti. We'll cover up the last 3 on this one. And then these 2 we'll use the other stamp on. This time I'm going to cover up the first 3 and make this one .043, and then that one's 3043. Now I'm going to grab this guy and I'm going to stamp this one in red on all of them, and we're just going to stamp it right side up, but over the picture a little. Now let me pull out my reindeer, because what we're going to do now is I am going to grab my fountain pen, if I can figure out where I have put it. Ah, here we go. And I'm going to just sign everybody's name to the bottom of their thing. But for a reindeer, we're going to do little reindeer paws at the bottom. All right, so I Googled for reindeer footprints. So that's kind of what we're going for. And I'm grabbing my Copic multi-liner. And I'm just going to kind of draw reindeer paw prints on. Because they wouldn't have a signature. They'd put their paw prints on. Or hoof prints, I suppose, is more accurate. Do his going this way, so they're not all the same. So here we have our Whimsical North Pole identification cards. Now you could do more stamping on here if you want. I may go back and do that at some point, but I think this is good for now. So we've got Rudolph, Dasher, which of course it was the first one I did off camera and I didn't stamp the D very well. Prancer, Dancer, our elf Jolly, Frosty, Mrs. Claus, Bumble, Santa, because, you know, we can't have North Pole identification cards without Santa, and then Holly. So there are all of our Whimsical identification cards. So if you enjoyed this video, please do all the things that lets YouTube know you enjoyed the video. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave me a comment down below. Thanks for joining me, and happy crafting.